Hello, everybody. Welcome to my In Conversation With. I'm so excited to be here. This is a really, really impromptu live with the amazing Jojo Smith, our branding fairy godmother. I'm super excited about this. In Conversation With is a chat show that I host weekly, talking to other business owners in and around the direct selling and network marketing industry about life, business, tips, struggles, successes in the industry, and giving you some fantastic advice and support on your business as well. And yes, I would like to welcome Jojo. Hello, Jojo.
Hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself officially to everybody out there?
I will do. Shall I explain how this has ended up being impromptu?
Yes.
So
Yes.
You thought we both came here under different for different reasons, in the sense of it was both the long goal was to do the podcast together, to do your podcast. However, I thought I was coming to do the podcast now. You were just going to ask me if I wanted to do it. And I was like, I'm in. Don't worry, let's do it. So that's why it's ended up being a little impromptu. However, sometimes those are the best things that can actually happen. So just going with it, going with the flow, and going, you know what, I'm right where I'm meant to be. So for those of you that are watching and are part of Anna's community, I am Jojo Smith, the belief, brand and business development fairy godmother. Now that sounds like a really swish statement. That's because it is. But that's because I truly believe in the skills that I have adopted and fostered as being a fairy godmother, which is someone that sees your potential, helps you figure out your path of purpose, and how you get there. It's basically a transformation of something that you've already got, because lots of people don't see what they have in front of them. And belief, brand and business development is because 20 years in the business development space, in a corporate space of business development. I started my own business 3.5 years ago, but started it with very little belief and an absolutely shocking brand. I stepped out as I thought I should, rather than how I could. And my business wasn't developing, and I wondered why my business wasn't developing, because obviously I was a business developer. That's what I'd done for 20 odd years. When I started to reverse engineer that, I realised that my brand, stepping out as I thought I should, really wasn't attracting my ideal client or making me look authentic, real, relatable, trustworthy. You know, because the reason I stepped out as I thought I should was because I didn't think I could ever be a CEO, a director of a company. And that was because I use kisses as full stops. My grammar is absolutely shocking. And I absolutely, if you hadn't guessed already, adore the colour pink, right? So I stepped out as I thought I should, as very corporate, what I call businessman Jeff kind of branding. And it wasn't doing me any favors. But in order for me to step out truly as me, sorry, I'm going to sniff a little bit today as well. There's hay fever in the air, so I will apologize for that, but I am sassy, not sorry about it. So I then really knew that I had to go hard or go home. And it was, I need to step out as me. But in order to do that, I needed the true self-belief that being me unapologetically was A-okay. B, I wasn't going to worry what anybody else thought. And C, you know, it was going to be something that I was happy to just wholeheartedly step into. That took a lot of work on self-awareness and a lot of strategy, which is why my company is CreativSAS, Creative Self-Awareness Strategy. And doing lots of work on that helped me work on the belief, helped me work on the brand, which in turn then fabulously, now a 6-figure business, and a finalist for the Great British Entrepreneur as well. Yay. My business is developing. So that's where belief, brand and business development comes from, because really it's like a 3-layer cake, like behind me. Hold on. So for those of you listening, you can't see it, but I've got a great big huge cake behind me. It is cardboard, but it's because I believe you can create a cake and eat it lifestyle. But in order to do that, in order to have all the flexibility, everything you want in life, for me, you have to have your own business, or you need to work for yourself so that you can have that hybrid or flexibility in working. But to do that, business development is the top layer, brand is the second layer, but the biggest layer of all is the self-belief. So that's how CreativSAS, Jojo Smith, belief, brand and business development, fairy godmother, was born. So yes, it was swish, but it's all in the self-belief. But thank you for having me here.
It's all right. I'm so pleased that you said yes when we met at that business awards last month, because when we were chatting, and it was only a really brief chat across a bar, wasn't it? It was just a total chance that I thought, do you know what? This is exactly what I need to get across to everybody in the network marketing world. That fact that it's not the should, it should look like this. It's you, it's what people are buying into.
It's the could. So one of my biggest things that when I work with anybody, or even when I'm in a little conversation with people, I will always say, oh, don't beat yourself up with the should stick. Get rid of the shoulds, right? Swap them out for coulds. Yeah. I could be wholeheartedly myself. I could be the most fabulous business. I could work for myself. I could do this. Yeah. When you say should, it's a real judgmental kind of statement. And nobody has the right to judge anybody else. We all do it. We all fall into the trap. But by just switching that one little word, it's a huge self-awareness and strategy. Yeah. And it's one that I use all the time. But by switching it out to could, so many different things have happened for me. So many things, because you give yourself the leeway to be able to go, well, actually, I could. And to say I could is a big belief statement.
Yeah. See, I swap it around. I use when, not if. That's how I work. I get my brain working. When, not if. So when I do this, this will happen, and not if I do this. It's just that belief again, isn't it? Just switching it around.
If is a very small word with a huge meaning. And that's another statement that I wholeheartedly agree with. So swap out your shoulds for coulds, and that's just like the smallest self-belief tip that I can give you. But we had a conversation across the bar, and we said, oh, you know, what do you do? We had a mutual person that we knew that was stood in between us. Well, I say that we knew. I knew them vicariously through somebody else, and they were like, you're Jojo Smith, I know you. I was like, oh. We had that conversation. We then started chatting. You told me what you did, and you're on a bit of a mission yourself, and your purpose is to really change perception of your line of work. So when you said to me, will you come on the podcast, I was like, I most certainly will. Hence the reason why today I thought that we were going live with it, and here we are.
It's all good. It's all good. I am a proper wing it Wendy style person. I could be thrown right in the deep end and quite happily just go and do. So just jumping straight on a podcast without any planning. It's second nature. But I like we were saying, when I was speaking to you, I just thought, do you know what, that is the perfect thing, because what happens in the network marketing industry is you are provided with a product, which is the same as everybody else's product in the company. You're provided with your branding, your physical branding, which is the same as everybody else's. You're even provided with images and sometimes copy and paste words that make you sound like everybody else. How do you stand out from a crowd when you're being given all that? And
there's there's only one way to do that. It's the same principle, because really with network marketing, you are running your own business, aren't you? It's just it's a level of somebody else's, but it effectively is yours, because you're in charge of, you know, when, how, to some extent. But like you say, you are given all the baseline standards. So you're given brand guidelines, which in network, you need that, because whoever's buying into the product needs to know that the standard is the same. However, when it comes to how you stand out, you can only be you. There is only two things guaranteed in this world. One, you die. So you may as well have a really good life and enjoy it. That's my first one. The second one is there's only one you in this world. There is no other you in this world, you know. So embracing every aspect of you, the quirks, the smiles, the laugh, the little things that you might do or say, those are the only ways that you will stand out in business, the only ways. And the first step there is really embracing imperfection and understanding that you're going to get it wrong sometimes. You're not going to be the best at everything. It's embracing your strengths, but just owning your weaknesses.
Yeah, totally get that. And it's super important in an industry where you are surrounded by that same product, that same branding all the time. Your audience are as well to some extent, because they'll see lots of the same people. Why should somebody buy from you over somebody else? And I think if you can stand out and make yourself as you possibly can be, the right people will buy into that. It's firmly what I've stood by the whole way through this business of direct selling success. I teach a totally different way from everybody else. I'm a blunt Yorkshire woman who says it how it is. I am not one for beating around the bush and fluff and shining it up.
Blunt and brilliance go in the same sentence as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, there's kind, and you can be blunt and kind.
Yes.
You can be to the point and you can be kind, and you can be considerate in that. And it's still able to do it. But even if you're not, maybe, you may be blunt and really sharp, not you, whoever. Yeah. But the blunt and sharp people, or the people that like blunt and sharp, will search you out and will come and find you. And those are your kind of people. You will attract, like attracts like, and you will attract those people. When I stepped out as businessman Jeff, as I called it, I was going to attract all the other businessman Jeffs that were a bit, and sorry, I don't mean to offend any Jeffs. I love all the Jeffs out there, so it's fine. No Jeffs were harmed in this process, I have to tell you. But when I'm going to attract those kinds of people, and that wasn't my ideal client. My ideal client was somebody that was looking to discover their sassy side. And sassy standing for lively, bold, full of spirit, and a little bit cheeky. That's the definition of sassy. And those are the people that I wanted to attract. But if I was attracting the other people, I would be waking up every morning going, oh God, I'm dealing with them today. I don't want to be with them. And it would make my life a misery. As it stands, stepping out as me and how I am, I attract the same kind of people, or people that want to be around this kind of energy. Therefore, I can wholeheartedly be myself. And that is the only way you can be scalable and sustainable in any business, is by being yourself. Because when you step out as somebody you're not, you can only do that for so long. And it's not a trustworthy thing. And in business, people need to know, like, and trust you. And if they're going to get to know you, then you've got to be you. It's no point me, acting like I run a marathon every Friday, because I really do not. The word fun and run don't need to be in the same sentence in my world.
Run and gym are swear words in my world.
I don't mind the gym, and I don't mind a little run. It depends. If I run around the shops. I quite like running around the shops, but that's it.
That's me.
Right. So, there's that know, like, and trust. People need to know what you're really like. Who you really are. The moment I stepped out, and I call it my wonky crown. Everybody's got a wonky crown. My crown has always sat firmly on the wonk. It's never been straight. And the moment that I owned that was the moment that my business went like that. Because
exactly the same here.
It grew the trust, because people were like, well, she's really honest about it. The fact that she's shocking at grammar. You'll see some of my posts, and like I'm a fully published #1 Best Selling Author, and I wrote a book, yet I use kisses as full stops and my grammar's shocking. Do you know what I mean? So you can read it. It was edited professionally, so it is there. However, by owning that, sometimes when I do a post or what have you, my audience accept that and acknowledge that, because they're like, well, that's Jo. They know it's come from me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And that's how it should be. Absolutely, because it makes you
could be.
I bet when you were trying to be businessman Jeff, that when you did find that client Jeff, you couldn't train him, you couldn't teach him. He didn't really want what you'd got either.
They do, because I have this way of being around people, but it didn't flow. It wasn't effortless. It was,
fine.
It was something I really had to work at, and the energy was just off. But being me, it's effortless how I do my business now. I say it's effortless. All businesses are hard. It's hard to be out there. That's another reason why being yourself is so important, because entrepreneurship in, multi-level marketing or in an individual business is really, really hard, lonely. And at times, you think to yourself, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Couple that with trying to be something you're not, and trying to perceive a certain image or persona, is just putting another obstacle in your way. It has to be effortless, and it has to be fun. And trying to be somebody else isn't fun. It actually wears you down. Your self-awareness in that, your own confidence in that, your own self-esteem is in that, will always be affected if you're not just being yourself. But it does take a lot to step into that.
Yeah. So what would you give everybody listening out here now? What would you tell them if they're stuck in that place where they are struggling to find that thing that is themselves? What's the first thing that they should look at?
So, I mean, it's a whole process. It's definitely a whole process. However, somewhere to start is you really need to love yourself beyond belief. Shameless plug, that's the name of my book. But the reason I wrote that book is because I wanted somewhere where people could start that process on their own, because it is a really, really hard process, and it takes that very first step just to do that. So the reason I wrote the book is because that's how I did it. I had to really accept and acknowledge myself first before I could expect anybody else to, because if I wasn't, how was anybody else going to? So loving yourself beyond belief, firstly, is the first step. How do you do that? There's lots of different strategies that you can do, but it takes creating new habits in order to create new behaviors. So for yourself, like, not for you, for anybody that's listening, if you're not loving hard on yourself, if you are not proud of who you are, if you are not, able to just take life with a little bit more fun, and you're taking life too seriously, you're taking yourself too seriously, then it really needs to start with you looking and understanding your own significance, and understanding your own worth, understanding who the F you are, really liking that and accepting in all entirety the way you look, not worrying about a filter on a photo, not worrying about, obviously you want to be presentable. That's different, to show that you're presentable, because if I rocked up with chewing gum in my hair and everything else now, that wouldn't look great. Do you know what I mean? But being presentable is one thing, but being just who you are is a whole other. And that, like I say, that takes strategies. It can just be with as much as a cheeky little smile in the mirror of a morning. For 21 days to break a habit, 96 days for a lifestyle change. So CreativSAS is actually, it's a modality that I created, which is creative self-awareness strategy. It's about creating different self-awareness strategies that suit you, not anybody else, that suit you. Because we can all have the affirmations, we can all have, going to the gym, like you said, it's not for you, going to the gym. If you don't create a self-awareness strategy that is bespoke to you, you won't stick at it. You won't stay with it. So therefore it won't work. And it comes down to common sense with some aspects, because I created a strategy that worked for me ultimately at first. One of the biggest things that I had in owning my own business was that I wasn't qualified. I didn't do great at school. And I speak with a really strong Brummie accent. And that is perceived as being a bit thick out in the world.
Same as I get the same thing with being from Yorkshire. I'm common. I'm
exactly
northern.
That. Do you know, not educated, all that kind of stuff. So I am not qualified. I've got this, strong Brummie accent. I'm a curvy girl as well. And I was like, who is going to take me seriously when I rock up? Let's face it, people have seen the title of this, Fairy Godmother. They're like, you know, who is a serious business person to be listening to a fairy godmother? But trust me, on this, there is a transformation to be had. And so those were my main things. So I started with the knowledge that 21 days to break a habit. However, 21 days, we've all done diets, we've all done these kind of things. I'm not here for diets, by the way. I don't think they work. And it's a mindset thing. So 21 days, I was like, okay, I believe in that. I can understand how that could create a new habit. But 21 days didn't resonate with me, but 22 did. 22 is my number. I mean,
right, okay.
22 for a fairy godmother, 22 is my birthday, 22 is my number. So I was like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it for 22 days, not 21. Straight away, I was connected to that number. It didn't feel like a chore. It felt relevant to me. So I switched out those statements in my head, because you have two ways of thinking in your head. You have an intuitive side and you have a deliberate side of thinking. I call them the wise and the willing fairy in my head, right? And when you think to yourself, can I do something? The willing fairy will run to the front of your brain and it will say to you, well, no, because you didn't think you could do it last week. She's trying to help. She's trying to give you a solution. Yeah. But she's not basing it on evidence that is a bit further back in the evidence log, if that makes sense, because we don't think about it, because we all focus on the negative of ourselves. Mm. But if you were to stop and you were to go, hold on a minute, just let the wise fairy come forward with her evidence. Confidence and self-belief is evidence-based. Yeah. So I had to find something. I had to find some evidence that outweighed, I'm not qualified, and my Brummie accent. Yeah. So I let the wise fairy come to the forward. There's not actually a wise fairy, by the way, just so you don't think I've gone raving loon.
It's not that cartoon. What's that cartoon with all the little people in your brain? I forgot what it's called. Yeah,
well, when I see these fairies in my head, they look like real sassy Tinkerbells in leather jackets, right? Anyway.
I like it.
So this works for me. It might not work for everybody, but this is where I'm saying you have to be bespoke to you. And find, I don't want to make anybody like me. I want everybody to be them, who they are. So anyway, I was like, okay, so I'm not qualified. What outweighs that statement? I am an awesome creative. I am an absolute awesome creative. It's always been in my genes. It's a gift I've got. If you brought a problem to me and you were like, fix this problem, I could probably do it with an elastic band and a safety pin. My granddad was an engineer. It's how I am, right? I'm resourceful, I'm resilient, and I'm a rapid adapter. That comes from me being in the care system, but that's another story. Anyway, so I was like, I'm an awesome creative. So every time I heard that statement, I'm not qualified, I switched it out for I am an awesome creative. In fact, I went whole hog for 22 days. Everywhere, I am an awesome creative. And I reframed, retrained, and I learned to maintain that statement in my head. That was my evidence-based self-belief. But I did that solid for 22 days. I don't hear I'm not qualified anymore. I only hear I am an awesome creative, because that's what the willing fairies got at the forefront, if that makes sense.
Totally.
This is all my self-awareness strategy. I also did it with the Brummie accent and getting used to that. Actually, it's one of my main things that makes me stand out from the crowd, because I don't sound like everybody else. So actually, it's one of my biggest assets. It's almost like a flag waving, going, pick me, because I'll stand out in the crowd. So I learned to love that aspect. And if you look at Alison Hammond, yes, look how well she's done. Her Brummie accent, she's true to who she is. Look at Peaky Blinders, how successful that was. Do you know what I mean? That was the evidence-based that I needed to put myself in that same category. Again, 22 days, telling myself who I was. You know, I had other statements as well to counteract what other ones that were going on. But that was the basis of it. So for anybody that is not loving hard on themselves, find those things, reframe, retrain, and then maintain those things, those thoughts. And it has such a positive power. And only then will you step into your potential. And honestly, it's really, really huge. But self-awareness strategy for me, hence the reason CreativSAS, it was everything. Sorry, that took a long answer, but I wanted to point people in the right direction.
It's so important, because I talk the same thing all the time about the fact that this belief in yourself, belief in what you're doing, and that passion for what you've got is so key, that has to be where you start all the time. Because if you don't start there, whatever you're doing, you'll not believe you can do it.
Yeah,
I can give you all the training in the world, but I can't give you that belief. That has to come from somewhere else.
There's only one thing that stops us in this world. It's ourselves. And it's terrible, and it's tragic for the amount of people. Hence the reason where I can see your passion comes from. That's where my passion comes from. Because it's like, if this girl that uses kisses as full stops is shocking at grammar, loves pink, calls herself a fairy godmother, whacks a bow in her hair, can be a successful 6-figure business owner, working with 6-figure and 7-figure businesses. If I can do that, be Great British Entrepreneur finalist, be a #1 Best Selling Author, if I can do all that, I'll be damned if nobody else can.
Exactly. That's exactly what I say, but with my story. Exactly the same. Yeah. And it just proves then to everybody else, when you're thinking about that, that, like you were talking about then with your fairies, it's that belief that actually, if somebody else can do it, I can too.
It's evidence-based.
We're no different. Evidence-based, that's the word I was looking for. But we are no different from anybody else.
We're not.
No, we're not special. We're not.
We're all special in our own way. I would like to say that, because
special.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but there's nothing different about me. Well, there is, because the different things are what I'm putting out there. That takes us on to the next layer. However, do you know what it is? We all have the same roots, and we all have the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Things that are around you. I can't think of a word now. This is me. We resourced. We all have the same resource within ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Regarding our mindset, we have that same resource. It's just, we have to figure out how to use that. And, thoughts breed behavior. Behavior breeds outcome. So therefore, it's those thoughts that actually, is where it all comes from. And that's the big part of the belief aspect. Moving into the brand aspect, if you don't step out as you are going to blend in. Yeah. And that's when you're not going to show anybody that there's anything special about you. So people need to see what are your different attributes. People need to resonate. They need to want to buy from you. And it's not about the product.
No, it's not.
Really, it's about the person. And that, I can't say enough, that once you've built that belief, stepping into the brand of who you are, your values, your loves, your likes, your hates, you know, you don't like, because if you're somebody, I don't know, this sounds like blasphemy, that doesn't like dogs. I love dogs, by the way. But if you're somebody that doesn't like dogs, you need to probably say that. And all the people that don't like dogs are going to love you. They're going to understand it. If you don't like pink, oh my goodness, blaspheming again, right? But if you don't like pink, then, those people will graduate and gravitate towards the things that you like if they like them too. So, but I mean, your values are really, really important. A brand isn't just a logo. So many people think that a brand is a logo. And to be fair, in your industry, it's more important than ever, because they're all under the same logo. They're all under the same colours. So the only one true thing that they can have as their USP, which I'd say is your unique super personality.
Oh, I love it.
Your unique selling point. The only thing you've got is your personality that's different to everybody else. So therefore, you've got to own it. Absolutely got to own it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for coming on and talking today. Really impromptu, no prep. It's been fantastic. Probably one of the best ones yet.
Oh, I'll take that.
Is there any one last thing you would like to share with the audience at the moment?
One of my sayings that I say is sassy, not sorry, which means lively, bold, full of spirit, and a little bit cheeky, and be unapologetic for being so. It doesn't mean you have to be loud. It just means you have to show up be yourself, take the risk, ask or you don't get, put yourself forward and be that person. And if anybody wants to come and find me, they can find me at CreativSAS on I'm Jojo Smith on Facebook, but CreativSAS on the other socials. My stories are very uplifting because I believe in surrounding myself with positive people and positive things. But CreativSAS is CREATIV, no E on the end of creative, because there's no E on the end of Joe, and I spent years telling people that. So CreativSAS, CreativSAS. Come and find me, come and hang out with me. And if you want to work on your belief, shameless plug, go and find the book, Jojo Smith. Loving Yourself Beyond Belief. It's got home play in there because we don't do homework in Sassville. And go and get it. It's available on Amazon. And I
will put the links below as well, so you've got them.
Lovely.
Brill. Thank you
for having me.
Anytime.